The blood pooled beneath Natalie Harper's body as the desert sun beat down mercilessly on the rocky outcrop where she lay dying, abandoned by the man who had promised her forever, just 3 months earlier when they fled Boston together. The year was 1873, and the California wilderness stretched endlessly in all directions, indifferent to her suffering as vultures began their slow circles overhead. Her breathing came in shallow gasps, each one sending fresh waves of agony through her body, where Thomas had struck her repeatedly before taking their horses, their money, and every scrap of hope she had carried across the country. She had believed every sweet word, every gentle touch, every whispered promise of the new life they would build together in San Andreas. Instead, he had revealed his true nature once they were far enough from civilization that no one would hear her screams or find her body before the desert claimed it completely. The sun moved across the sky with agonizing slowness. Natalie drifted in and out of consciousness, her 22 years of life playing before her eyes in fragmented images. Her mother's face when she announced she was leaving with Thomas, the disapproval of her father, a respected merchant who had seen through Thomas's charm immediately, the way her younger sisters had cried at the train station begging her not to go. She had been so certain, so absolutely convinced that Thomas loved her as deeply as she loved him. What a fool she had been. The sound of hoofbeats reached her through the haze of pain, but she could not muster the strength to call out. Perhaps it was Thomas returning to finish what he had started. Perhaps it would be a mercy. The darkness at the edges of her vision crept closer with each labored breath. Owen Keller had been tracking the stolen cattle for 3 days when he spotted the figure lying motionless among the rocks. His first thought was that he had stumbled upon another victim of the ruthless gang that had been plaguing the territory, but something made him urge his horse closer instead of riding past. The 24-year-old rancher had seen enough death in his years working this harsh land to recognize it from a distance, yet something pulled him forward. When he reached her side and dismounted, his heart lurched. She was alive, barely, but the injuries covering her face and body spoke of brutal violence. Her dress was torn and blood-stained, her dark hair matted with dirt and blood. But it was her eyes that struck him when they fluttered open briefly pale green, filled with such pain and betrayal that it physically hurt him to see. "I've got you," he said softly, already pulling his canteen free. "You're going to be all right." She tried to speak, but only a broken sound emerged. Owen worked quickly, assessing her injuries with practiced efficiency. He had learned basic medical care from necessity, living as he did on a remote ranch with his younger brother. This woman needed a real doctor, but the nearest one was in San Andreas, still 15 miles away. He was not sure she would survive the journey. "I'm going to lift you now," he told her gently. "It's going to hurt, but I need to get you to town." Her eyes found his again, and he saw the fear there. She was terrified of him, he realized. Of course she was. Someone had done this to her, and she had no reason to trust any stranger who appeared in this desolate place. "My name is Owen Keller," he said, keeping his voice calm and steady. "I have a ranch about 30 miles south of San Andreas. I'm not going to hurt you. I promise you that on my life." Something in his tone must have reached her, because she gave the smallest nod. Owen lifted her as carefully as he could, but she still cried out in pain. He felt sick knowing he was causing her more suffering, but leaving her here meant certain death. He settled her across his saddle, then mounted behind her, cradling her against his chest to keep her as stable as possible. The ride to San Andreas was the longest of Owen's life. The woman drifted in and out of consciousness, sometimes whimpering softly, other times lying so still he had to check to make sure she was still breathing. He talked to her the entire way, not sure if she could hear him, but hoping his voice provided some comfort. "I've got 2 horses and a dog named Rusty back at my ranch," he said. "My brother Daniel helps me run the place. We mostly raise cattle, but we've been talking about expanding into horses. The land out here is harsh, but it's honest work. You can see for miles in every direction. Sometimes I think about going back east where things are easier, but I always change my mind. There's something about this place that gets in your blood. He was rambling, he knew, but it kept him from thinking about how dire her situation was. Her breathing grew more labored as they rode, and fresh blood seeped through the makeshift bandages he had fashioned from his spare shirt. Stay with me, he urged when her head lolled against his shoulder. We're almost there. Doc Harrison is the best physician between here and San Francisco. He'll fix you up. The sun was setting when San Andreas finally came into view. The town had sprung up during the gold rush 20 years earlier and had managed to survive when many others became ghost towns. It now served as a hub for the ranchers and farmers who had claimed the surrounding territory. Owen rode straight down Main Street, ignoring the curious stares from the townspeople who recognized him. Doc Harrison's office was at the end of the street, a neat whitewashed building with a shingle hanging outside. Owen dismounted carefully, keeping the woman secure in his arms, and kicked at the door. Doc, I need help. The door swung open to reveal a gray-haired man in his 50s, his spectacles perched on his nose. His expression shifted from annoyance to professional concern in an instant when he saw Owen's burden. Bring her in, quickly, put her on the table. Owen carried her into the examination room and laid her down as gently as possible on the sturdy wooden table. In the lamplight, her injuries looked even worse than he had initially thought. Her face was swollen and discolored, her lips split and bloody. Dark bruises covered her arms and throat. What happened? Doc Harrison asked, already cutting away her ruined dress to examine her injuries. I found her out past Red Rock Canyon. Someone beat her and left her to die. The doctor's jaw tightened as he worked. She's lucky you found her when you did. Another hour and she would have been gone. Owen stood back, feeling helpless as the doctor worked. He should leave, he knew. He had done his good deed. But something kept his feet planted firmly on the floor. He could not shake the image of those green eyes, so full of pain and broken trust. Is she going to make it? He asked after what felt like hours but was probably only 30 minutes. Too soon to tell. She's got broken ribs, internal bleeding possibly, and significant head trauma. The next 48 hours will be critical. Doc Harrison glanced at him. Do you know who she is? No, she hasn't been able to talk. Well, someone did this deliberately. This wasn't a random attack. These injuries suggest sustained violence. Owen's hands clenched into fists. When she wakes up, maybe she can tell us who. If she wakes up, the doctor corrected grimly. You should get the sheriff. This is a criminal matter. Owen found Sheriff Thomas Crow at the saloon, as expected. The lawman was in his early 40s, competent but often overwhelmed by the vastness of the territory he was supposed to police. He listened to Owen's account with growing concern. I'll ride out at first light and see what I can find, Crow said. But if whoever did this has any sense, they're long gone by now. She might be able to identify them when she recovers. If she recovers. The sheriff took a long drink. I've seen this kind of thing before. Usually it's a husband or lover. She's probably running from something. Owen felt defensive on her behalf, though he could not explain why. Whatever she was running from, she didn't deserve this. Never said she did. Crow stood and adjusted his gun belt. I'll talk to Doc Harrison, see if there's anything else he can tell me. Owen returned to the doctor's office, where he found the woman had been moved to one of the back rooms, where Doc Harrison kept patients who needed extended care. She lay still beneath clean white sheets, her face cleaned of blood but showing the full extent of the bruising. Someone had put a nightgown on her, and her hair had been brushed back from her face. You can sit with her if you want, Doc Harrison said from the doorway. Sometimes it helps if they hear a familiar voice. I'm not familiar to her. I just found her. You're the first thing she saw when she thought she was dying. That creates a bond, whether you realize it or not. Owen pulled a chair close to the bed and sat down. The woman's breathing was steadier now, her chest rising and falling in a more regular rhythm. He studied her face, trying to imagine what she looked like when she smiled, when those eyes were bright with happiness instead of pain. I don't even know your name, he said softly, but I'm going to stay right here until you wake up and tell me. And then I'm going to find whoever did this to you. The night passed slowly. Doc Harrison checked on his patient every hour, his expression remaining professionally neutral, but Owen could tell he was worried. Around 3 in the morning, the woman became restless, thrashing weakly and crying out. It's all right, Owen said, taking her hand carefully. You're safe now. Nobody's going to hurt you. His words seemed to reach her because she calmed, her fingers tightening around his with surprising strength. He stayed like that, holding her hand, until dawn broke through the window. Doc Harrison brought coffee and biscuits. You should go get some rest. I can watch her. I'm fine. Owen, you've been up all night. You're no good to anyone if you collapse. I'll rest when she wakes up. The doctor sighed, but did not argue further. Stubborn, just like your father. Owen had heard that his whole life. His father had been one of the first ranchers in the territory, carving out their land through sheer determination and hard work. He had died 5 years ago, leaving Owen and Daniel to carry on. Sometimes Owen felt the weight of that legacy crushing him, but right now he was grateful for the stubborn streak that kept him in this chair. Around mid-morning, her eyes opened. She stared at the ceiling for a long moment before slowly turning her head to look at him. Recognition flickered across her face. You, she whispered, her voice hoarse. Me, he confirmed with a gentle smile. How are you feeling? Like I was trampled by horses. She tried to sit up and gasped in pain. Easy, Owen said, helping her settle back against the pillows. You've got broken ribs among other things. Doc says you need to stay still. She looked around the room, taking in her surroundings. Where am I? San Andreas, California. Doc Harrison's office. I'm Owen Keller. I found you out past Red Rock Canyon yesterday. Her eyes filled with tears. You should have left me there. Not a chance. You don't understand. He'll come back. He'll finish what he started. Owen's jaw tightened. Who will? She closed her eyes, and tears slipped down her bruised cheeks. Thomas. Thomas Warren. We came from Boston together. He said he loved me. He said we were going to start a new life in California. But once we got far enough from home, he showed me who he really was. The story came out in broken pieces, how Thomas had courted her with practiced charm, how he had convinced her to leave her family and everything she knew, how he had been kind and attentive during the journey west, never showing a hint of violence. But once they reached California, things had changed. He grew angry over small things, blamed her for imagined slights. 2 days ago, he had told her they were going to ride out to look at potential homestead land. Instead, he had taken her to that remote canyon and revealed his true intentions. He needed a respectable woman to help him run confident schemes, she said bitterly. That's all I ever was to him, a tool. And when I refused, when I threatened to go to the law, he decided I was more trouble than I was worth. Did he say where he was going? No, but he took everything. Our horses, our money, all my belongings. He left me with nothing. Owen felt a cold rage building in his chest. What's your name? Natalie Harper. Well, Natalie Harper, I promise you that Thomas Warren is going to answer for what he did to you. She shook her head weakly. It doesn't matter. He's probably halfway to Oregon by now. Sheriff Crow is already investigating. If Warren's in the territory, we'll find him. And then what? It's my word against his. I left Boston willingly. I have no proof of what he did. Your injuries are proof. Are they? Or did I just fall off my horse? Her voice was bitter. That's what he'll say. And who's going to believe the foolish girl who ran away from home over a respectable man? Owen wanted to argue, but he knew she was right. The law was often more concerned with appearances than truth, especially when it came to disputes between men and women. But that did not mean Warren would get away with it. Not if Owen had anything to say about it. Doc Harrison entered the room looking pleased. You're awake. That's excellent news. How's the pain? Manageable, Natalie lied. I'll give you something for it. You're going to need to stay here for at least a week, maybe two. Those ribs need time to heal, and I want to make sure there's no internal bleeding. I can't pay you, Natalie said quietly. I have nothing. We'll figure that out later. Right now, you just focus on getting better. After Doc Harrison left, Natalie turned back to Owen. You should go. You've done more than enough already. I'm not going anywhere. Why? You don't know me. You don't owe me anything. Owen considered his answer carefully. Because when I found you yesterday, you were dying. And the look in your eyes when you realized I wasn't going to hurt you, that I was there to help, that look told me everything I needed to know. Someone broke your trust in the worst possible way. Someone made you believe that all people are capable of that kind of cruelty. I can't fix what he did to you, but I can show you that not everyone is like Thomas Warren. Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. I was so stupid. Everyone told me not to go with him. My father said Thomas was no good. But I thought I knew better. I thought I was in love. You're not stupid for wanting to believe in love. He's the villain in this story, not you. How can you be so kind to a stranger? Maybe I see something worth being kind to. The words hung in the air between them, and Owen felt his heart skip. He had not meant for it to come out quite like that, but he found he did not regret it. There was something about Natalie Harper that drew him in, something beyond her current circumstances that made him want to know more. Over the following days, Owen became a fixture in Doc Harrison's office. He went to his ranch only to check on things and give instructions to Daniel, then returned to sit with Natalie. They talked for hours, sharing their stories and gradually building trust. He learned about her life in Boston, her work in her father's store, her love of reading and music. She learned about his life on the ranch, the challenges and rewards of building something from nothing. Sheriff Crow reported that he had found the spot where Natalie was attacked, but there was no sign of Thomas Warren. The man had vanished completely, taking everything of value with him. Natalie accepted this news with resigned sadness, and Owen could see the defeat in her eyes. He's going to do this to someone else, she said one evening. He'll find another naive girl and spin his lies, and she'll believe him just like I did. Maybe. But that's not your fault or your responsibility, isn't it? I could warn people, I could tell my story. You could, but first you need to heal. By the end of the second week, Natalie was able to sit up and walk short distances. Her bruises had faded from purple to yellow-green, and the swelling in her face had gone down significantly. She was beautiful, Owen realized with a jolt. Not in the conventional way, perhaps, but there was a strength in her features, an intelligence in her eyes that captivated him. You're staring, she said one afternoon, catching him watching her as she stood by the window. Sorry, I was just thinking you look much better. I look like I was beaten half to death. You look like a survivor. She turned to face him fully. Owen, what happens when Doc Harrison releases me? I have no money, no prospects, nowhere to go. I can't exactly go back to Boston and tell my family they were right about Thomas. Why not? Because I'm ashamed. Because I can't face them after what I've done. You haven't done anything wrong. I ran away. I broke my father's heart. I worried my mother sick. And for what? For a man who tried to kill me. Owen stood and crossed to her. Natalie, you made a choice based on what you believed at the time. That's not something to be ashamed of. That's being human. Easy for you to say. Your life isn't in ruins. Then rebuild it. Stay in San Andreas. Start over. With what money? Doing what work? Owen took a deep breath. He had been thinking about this for days, weighing the implications, but every time he considered the idea, it felt more right. Work for me, at the ranch. I need someone to manage the household, keep the books, handle the supplies. Daniel and I are terrible at all that. We can pay you a fair wage, and there's a separate cabin you can stay in. It was my foreman's place, but he moved on last year. Natalie stared at him in shock. You're offering me a job and a place to live if you want it. Why would you do that for me? Because I think you deserve a chance to build a new life, one that's actually what you were looking for when you left Boston. She was quiet for a long moment, her expression unreadable. People will talk. A single woman living on a ranch with two unmarried men. Let them talk. Anyone who knows me knows I'm honorable. And you'll have your own space, your own independence. I don't know anything about ranching. You don't need to. Like I said, we need help with the household management. Cooking, cleaning, bookkeeping. Things we're honestly terrible at managing on our own. Natalie bit her lip, clearly torn. I can't take charity. It's not charity. It's a job. You'll earn every cent I pay you. Owen, I don't understand why you're being so good to me. No one is this kind without expecting something in return. He met her eyes steadily. I expect nothing except honest work. What you're feeling right now. This distrust, this belief that everyone has ulterior motives. That's what Thomas Warren did to you. Don't let him win. Don't let him poison you against every person who tries to help you. Her eyes filled with tears again. How do I know I can trust you? You don't. Not yet, but I'm hoping you'll give me a chance to prove it. She was silent for so long that Owen thought she would refuse. Then slowly she nodded. All right, I'll try, but if you prove to be anything like Thomas, I'm leaving immediately. Fair enough. Doc Harrison approved the plan, saying the fresh air and light work would be good for Natalie's continued recovery. 3 days later, Owen brought a wagon to town and helped her climb aboard for the journey to his ranch. She wore a simple dress that the doctor's wife had donated, her belongings fitting into a single small bag that Owen had purchased for her. The ride took most of the afternoon. The land was harsh and beautiful, with rolling hills covered in dry grass and scattered oak trees. In the distance, mountains rose against the blue sky. Natalie was quiet, taking it all in, and Owen did not push her to talk. He understood that she was processing everything, adjusting to yet another dramatic change in her life. The ranch came into view as the sun began its descent. It was a modest operation by some standards, but Owen was proud of what he and Daniel had built. The main house was solid wood construction with a wide porch. The barn and outbuildings were well maintained. Cattle grazed in the pastures, and horses moved in the corral. Daniel emerged from the barn as they approached, wiping his hands on his pants. He was 21 with the same dark hair and strong build as Owen, though his eyes were gray rather than brown. Owen had told him about Natalie, but this was his brother's first glimpse of her. You must be Miss Harper, Daniel said politely, offering his hand to help her down from the wagon. Welcome to the Keller Ranch. Thank you. And please call me Natalie. All right, Natalie, let me show you to your cabin. The cabin was small but well constructed, with a stone fireplace, a bed, a table with 2 chairs, and a trunk for storage. Someone, probably Daniel, had cleaned it thoroughly and left fresh linens on the bed. Wildflowers sat in a jar on the table. It's not much, Owen said, suddenly seeing the space through her eyes and finding it wanting. It's perfect, Natalie said softly. It's mine. That's all that matters. Over the following weeks, Natalie settled into life on the ranch. She proved to be an excellent cook, transforming the brothers' diet from basic sustenance to actual meals. She organized the household with quiet efficiency, creating systems for everything from laundry to supply ordering. She took over the bookkeeping and discovered several errors that had been costing them money, which she quickly corrected. But more than her practical contributions, Natalie brought a warmth to the ranch that had been missing. She sang while she worked, filling the house with melody. She laughed at Daniel's jokes and engaged in friendly debates about politics and literature. She was healing, Owen realized, slowly coming back to life. And he was falling in love with her. It happened so gradually that he almost did not notice at first, the way his heart lifted when he heard her voice in the morning, the way he found excuses to be near her, to talk to her. The way he lay awake at night, thinking about the curve of her smile, the light in her eyes when she was passionate about something. He tried to hide it, knowing she needed time to heal from Thomas's betrayal. The last thing she needed was another man pushing his feelings on her. But it was becoming increasingly difficult to maintain his careful distance, especially when he caught her watching him sometimes with an expression he could not quite read. One evening, about 2 months after she arrived at the ranch, Owen found Natalie sitting on the porch of her cabin, staring at the sunset. He had been checking on the horses and was heading back to the main house when he saw her. "Mind if I join you?" he asked. "Please do." He sat down on the step beside her, careful to leave some space between them. The sky was painted in shades of orange and pink, the kind of spectacular display that reminded him why he loved this land despite its challenges. "I got a letter from my mother today," Natalie said after a moment. Owen glanced at her in surprise. "You wrote to her?" "Last week. I couldn't stand the idea of them not knowing I was alive. I didn't tell them everything, just that I was safe and working on a ranch. I gave them this address if they wanted to write back." "What did she say?" "That she's been praying every day for my safety, that my father has aged 10 years from worry, that my sisters miss me terribly." Her voice broke slightly. "That they love me and want me to come home." "Are you going to go?" "I don't know. Part of me wants to, but another part of me feels like I've finally found where I belong. Is that crazy? I've only been here 2 months. It's not crazy. I felt the same way when I first came to California with my father. Boston seemed like a distant memory within weeks." "You're from Boston too?" "Originally, my father brought us west when I was 15. He wanted to build something that was truly ours, not just continue the family business that his father and grandfather had run." "Do you ever regret it? Leaving everything behind?" "Not for a moment. Well, maybe occasionally, when I'm fixing a fence in the rain or dealing with a difficult cow. But overall, no. This is home now." Natalie was quiet for a moment. "Owen, can I ask you something?" "Anything. Why did you really bring me here? And please be honest." He took a deep breath, knowing this was a pivotal moment. He could deflect, give her a safe answer, or he could tell her the truth. "Because from the moment I saw you, even beaten and broken in that canyon, I knew you were someone special. And as I've gotten to know you these past months, that feeling has only grown stronger. You're intelligent, kind, resilient, and yes, beautiful. You make this place feel like a real home instead of just a house. You make me want to be a better man." She turned to look at him, her eyes wide. "Owen, I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything. I'm not asking for anything from you. I just wanted you to know the truth. Whatever you decide about Boston or staying here or anything else, I'll support you. But I needed you to know how I feel. I'm not sure I'm ready for this, for what you're offering." "I know, and I understand. Thomas did a number on you, and you need time to heal from that." "I'm not going anywhere, Natalie. Whenever you're ready, if you're ever ready, I'll be here." She reached out and took his hand, lacing her fingers through his. "You're nothing like him. You know that, right? Thomas was all charm on the surface but hollow underneath. You're the opposite. Everything you are is real and solid and true. I try to be. You succeed." She squeezed his hand. "I can't promise you anything right now, but I'm not going back to Boston. I want to stay here at least for a while longer. If that's all right, more than all right." They sat together as the sun disappeared below the horizon, hands joined, not needing to say anything more. It was enough for now to share the moment and the promise of possibility. The seasons changed, summer giving way to fall. The ranch work shifted to preparing for winter, and Natalie threw herself into helping with the preparations. She learned to preserve vegetables, smoke meat, and prepare the supplies they would need when winter storms made trips to town difficult. She proved to have a natural aptitude for working with the horses, and Owen often found her in the stable, brushing down the animals and talking to them softly. Daniel teased Owen mercilessly about his feelings for Natalie, but he also approved wholeheartedly. "She's good for you," he said one day while they were mending fence. "You smile more now. You seem happier. I am happier. But I don't know if she feels the same way. Are you blind? She watches you constantly. The way she looks at you, it's pretty obvious. She's been through a lot. I don't want to push her. I'm not saying push. I'm saying maybe be a little less noble about the whole thing. Tell her how you feel." "I did." "And?" "And she said she needed time." Daniel shook his head. "Women, they make everything complicated." "You're one to talk. When was the last time you courted anyone?" "I'm too young to settle down. I'm enjoying my freedom." Owen laughed, but privately he wondered if his brother was lonely. The ranch was isolated, and opportunities to meet people were limited. He made a mental note to encourage Daniel to go to town more often, maybe attend some of the social events that happened there. In October, Sheriff Crow arrived at the ranch with unexpected news. "We found Thomas Warren. Or rather, he found us." Natalie, who had been serving coffee, went pale. "What do you mean?" "He tried to run a confidence scheme in Sacramento and picked the wrong mark. Fellow was a federal marshal. Warren's in custody, facing multiple charges. Turns out you weren't his first victim, Miss Harper. There are at least 3 other women he defrauded and abandoned." "Is he asking about me?" Natalie's voice was barely a whisper. "He doesn't know we made the connection between his crimes and what happened to you. But I wanted you to know that we can press charges if you're willing to testify." Natalie looked at Owen, her eyes filled with fear and uncertainty. He gave her an encouraging nod. "It's your choice," he said. "Whatever you decide, we'll support you." "If I testify, I have to face him again." "You do," Sheriff Crow confirmed. "But you'll be in a courtroom protected by law, and your testimony could put him away for a very long time, could prevent him from hurting anyone else." Natalie took a deep breath. "When is the trial?" 3 weeks. In Sacramento. Then I'll testify." The next 3 weeks were tense. Natalie threw herself into work, trying to avoid thinking about the upcoming trial, but Owen could see the toll it was taking on her. She had nightmares again, something that had mostly stopped in recent months. She jumped at sudden noises and became withdrawn. Owen did his best to support her without being overbearing. He made sure she ate regularly, encouraged her to talk when she seemed ready, and gave her space when she needed it. Daniel helped too, keeping the mood light with jokes and stories. Finally, the day came for them to leave for Sacramento. Owen insisted on accompanying Natalie, and Sheriff Crow agreed it was a good idea. They made the journey by stagecoach, a 3-day trip that gave Natalie plenty of time to prepare mentally for what lay ahead. The trial was held in a formal courtroom that smelled of old wood and leather. Thomas Warren sat at the defendant's table, looking far less confident than he had when Natalie last saw him. He had lost weight, and there were dark circles under his eyes. When he saw Natalie enter the courtroom, his expression hardened. Natalie's testimony was powerful. She spoke clearly and calmly, describing their courtship, the journey west, and finally the brutal attack in the canyon. She did not cry, did not show weakness. She was a woman who had survived and was now demanding justice. The defense attorney tried to suggest that she had willingly accompanied Thomas and that any injuries were the result of an accident. But the prosecutor countered with testimony from the other women Thomas had victimized, establishing a pattern of behavior that was impossible to ignore. When the jury returned with a guilty verdict, Natalie sat quietly, her hands folded in her lap. Owen, sitting behind her, saw her shoulders tremble slightly, but she held herself together until they were outside the courthouse. "It's over," she said, turning to face him. "It's really over." "It is. He can't hurt you anymore." "I thought I would feel different, vindicated or relieved or something, but I mostly just feel tired." "That's normal. You've been carrying this weight for months. It's going to take time to fully process." On the journey back to San Andreas, Natalie was quiet, but not withdrawn. She seemed thoughtful, as if working through something important in her mind. Owen let her be, trusting that she would share when she was ready. They arrived back at the ranch on a crisp November evening. The stars were brilliant overhead, and smoke rose from the chimney where Daniel had thoughtfully started a fire. As they climbed down from the wagon, Natalie turned to Owen. "Thank you for coming with me, for standing by me through all of this. There's nowhere else I would have been. Owen, I need to tell you something. These past months living here, working alongside you and Daniel, it's been the happiest time of my life. Even with everything that happened with Thomas, even with the trial hanging over me, I've been happy. Do you know why?" His heart was racing, but he kept his voice steady. "Why? Because of you. Because every day I see what real kindness looks like, what real strength looks like. You saved my life, Owen, not just in that canyon, but every day since. You showed me that I could trust again, that I could hope again. You proved to me what love actually is, not the twisted version Thomas sold me." "Natalie," he breathed, hardly daring to hope. "I'm in love with you," she said simply. "I think I have been for a while, but I was too scared to admit it. Scared that I was wrong again, scared that I was seeing something that wasn't there. But watching you these past weeks, the way you've supported me without asking for anything in return, I know I'm not wrong. This is real. You are real." Owen closed the distance between them and cupped her face gently in his hands. "I love you too. I have since that first day, though I didn't recognize it then. You're the strongest, bravest woman I've ever met. And if you'll have me, I want to spend the rest of my life proving to you that love doesn't have to hurt, that it can be steady and true and everything you deserve." She smiled, a real smile that lit up her entire face. "I'll have you, Owen Keller. I absolutely will." He kissed her then, soft and careful, pouring all his love and promise into that gentle contact. She kissed him back, her arms coming up to wrap around his neck, and for a moment the entire world consisted of just the two of them beneath the stars. When they finally pulled apart, both slightly breathless, they found Daniel standing on the porch, grinning like a fool. "About time," he called out. "I was starting to think you two would dance around each other forever." They both laughed, and Owen pulled Natalie close to his side. "Come on, let's go inside where it's warm." The winter passed in a haze of happiness. Owen and Natalie's courtship was the talk of San Andreas, but the gossip was mostly positive. People had seen how Owen had saved her, how he had helped her recover, and they approved of the match. A few busybodies whispered about impropriety, but most folks dismissed such talk. This was the West, after all, where practicality often trumped Eastern sensibilities. Owen proposed properly on Christmas Eve with a ring he had commissioned from a jeweler in San Francisco. It was simple but beautiful, a gold band with a small diamond. Natalie cried when he presented it to her, kneeling in the main room of the ranch house with the fire crackling behind them. "Yes," she said before he could even ask the question. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." They were married in early spring of 1874 in a simple ceremony at the small church in San Andreas. Natalie wore a dress of cream-colored silk that the local seamstress had made, and she carried wildflowers from the ranch. Owen wore his best suit, feeling slightly ridiculous in the formal clothes, but willing to endure it for this special day. Daniel stood as his best man, and the doctor's wife served as Natalie's attendant. Nearly the whole town attended, filling the church to capacity. Even Sheriff Crow was there, cleaned up and wearing a tie for the occasion. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Owen kissed Natalie with all the love in his heart. The congregation erupted in applause, and someone started playing a fiddle as they walked back down the aisle together. The reception was held at the largest saloon in town, which the owner had closed for the occasion. There was music and dancing and enough food to feed an army. Natalie laughed more than Owen had ever seen, her face glowing with joy. This was the woman she was meant to be, he thought. Without the shadow of Thomas Warren, without pain and fear, she was radiant. "Are you happy?" he asked as they danced together, her head resting against his shoulder. happier than I ever imagined possible. You gave me my life back, Owen. You gave me hope and love and a future. How could I be anything but happy? Good, because I intend to spend every day of the rest of our lives making sure you stay that way. That's a pretty big promise. I'm a pretty determined man. They moved into the main house together, turning the foreman's cabin into a guest space. Natalie had already made the house a home, but now she added her own touches everywhere. Curtains in the windows, rugs on the floors, books on the shelves. The place transformed from a bachelor's dwelling into a real family home. That summer, Natalie received another letter from her mother. Her family wanted to visit, to meet Owen, and see that she was truly well and happy. After some discussion, Owen and Natalie invited them to come for a month-long stay. The Harper family arrived in late August. Natalie's father was a stern-looking man in his 50s, but his face softened when he saw his daughter. Her mother was smaller and rounder, with tears streaming down her face as she embraced Natalie. The two younger sisters, both in their late teens, peppered Natalie with questions about ranch life in California. Owen was nervous about meeting them, knowing they probably blamed him in some way for taking their daughter so far from home. But Mr. Harper surprised him by shaking his hand firmly and saying, "Thank you for taking care of my girl. Sheriff Crow wrote and told us what you did, how you saved her. We're in your debt." "No debt," Owen said. "I love your daughter. That's all the payment I need." The visit went better than anyone expected. Mr. Harper was impressed by the ranch and the business Owen and Daniel had built. Mrs. Harper doted on everyone, cooking enormous meals and fussing over details. The sisters fell in love with California, spending hours riding horses and exploring the countryside. On the last evening of their visit, as they all sat on the porch watching the sunset, Mr. Harper spoke to Natalie privately. Owen could see them talking through the window, see the tears on his wife's face. When they came back inside, Mr. Harper addressed Owen directly. "I was wrong about Thomas Warren. I thought I had good judgment about people, but he fooled me completely. I knew he wasn't right for Natalie, but I didn't see the true depth of his depravity. I pushed my daughter away with my disapproval, and that pushed her into his arms. If she had felt she could come to me with doubts, maybe none of this would have happened." "You can't blame yourself," Natalie said. "Thomas was an expert liar. He fooled a lot of people. Perhaps. But I'm grateful she found you, Owen. You're the kind of man I always hoped she would marry. Honest, hardworking, devoted. You have my blessing, for whatever that's worth at this point." "It's worth everything, sir. Thank you." After the Harpers returned to Boston, life settled into a comfortable rhythm. Owen and Natalie worked side by side, building their life together. The ranch prospered under their joint management, and they began to expand their holdings, purchasing additional land and cattle. In the spring of 1875, Natalie discovered she was pregnant. Owen was overjoyed, though also terrified. The nearest doctor was in town, and childbirth was dangerous even under the best circumstances. But Natalie was calm and confident, assuring him that women had been having babies since the beginning of time. Their son was born in December, a healthy baby boy with dark hair and his mother's green eyes. They named him Thomas Harper Keller, reclaiming the name from the man who had hurt Natalie and giving it to this new life full of promise. "Are you sure about the name?" Owen asked as they looked down at their sleeping son. "I'm sure. That name doesn't belong to Thomas Warren anymore. It belongs to our son, and he's going to grow up knowing only love and kindness. We're taking back what was stolen and making it into something beautiful." Owen kissed her forehead. "Have I told you lately that you're the most amazing woman in the world? Not in the last hour or so. Well, you are, and I love you more than words can express. I love you too. Thank you for finding me, Owen. Thank you for not giving up on me when I had given up on myself. Always. I'll always find you, no matter what." Daniel doted on his nephew, declaring himself the best uncle in California. He spent hours entertaining the baby, making silly faces and singing off key songs. Watching him, Owen hoped his brother would find his own happiness someday. The years passed in a blur of joy and hard work. Thomas grew into a bright, energetic child who loved horses and following his father around the ranch. In 1877, Natalie gave birth to twin girls, Emily and Grace, both with their father's brown eyes and sunny dispositions. The house rang with children's laughter, and Owen often paused in his work to simply appreciate how blessed he was. Daniel finally met his match in 1878, a schoolteacher named Margaret who came to San Andreas from Philadelphia. She was practical and no nonsense, which suited Daniel perfectly. They were married within 6 months of meeting, and Daniel built a house on the far end of the ranch property. Soon enough, their children were playing with Owen and Natalie's, and the ranch felt like a true family compound. Natalie never completely forgot what Thomas Warren had done to her, but the pain faded over time until it was just a scar rather than an open wound. She sometimes shared her story with other women who found themselves in difficult situations, offering them hope and practical assistance. She and Owen established a small fund to help women who needed to leave dangerous circumstances, using it to provide temporary housing and job training. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Owen and Natalie took a rare trip away from the ranch, leaving the children in Daniel and Margaret's capable hands. They rode out to Red Rock Canyon, to the spot where Owen had found Natalie all those years ago. "I never thought I would come back here," Natalie said, looking at the rocky outcrop that had almost been her grave. "We don't have to stay. I just thought it might be meaningful to see how far you've come." "We've come. We've both changed since that day." "True enough." Owen dismounted and helped Natalie down. They stood together, looking at the spot where everything had changed. "I was so broken that day," Natalie said softly. "I had lost everything. My dignity, my future, my belief in goodness. I thought dying would be a relief. I'm so grateful you held on long enough for me to find you. Do you think it was fate? That we were meant to meet that way? I don't know about fate, but I know that finding you was the best thing that ever happened to me. You changed my life completely. You changed mine. You saved it, really. Not just my life, but me, the person I am. You proved that love doesn't have to hurt, that it can heal instead. Thomas broke me, but you put me back together." Better than I was before. Owen pulled her close, holding her against his chest. "I didn't do it alone. You're the one who chose to trust again, to hope again, to love again. That took more courage than anything I did. We did it together. That's the point. Love isn't one person saving another. It's two people choosing to build something together every single day." "Very wise, Mrs. Keller." "I have my moments." They stood there for a long time, wrapped in each other's arms, before finally riding back to the ranch. The sun was setting as they approached, painting the sky in brilliant colors. Smoke rose from the chimneys of both houses, and they could hear children's voices calling out in play. "Home," Natalie said with satisfaction. "Home," Owen agreed. That night, after the children were asleep, they sat together on their porch swing, watching the stars emerge. Natalie's head rested on Owen's shoulder, his arm around her waist. "Tell me about the future," she said. "What do you see when you think about the years ahead?" "I see this. You and me growing old together, watching our children grow up and have children of their own, maybe traveling a bit once the kids are older, but mostly just this, the everyday miracle of life with you." "That sounds perfect. What do you see?" "The same. Simple happiness. Nothing dramatic or exciting, just steady love and partnership. After everything I went through to get here, that's all I want. You're all I want. You have me. Forever. Forever," she echoed. And it was forever, in all the ways that mattered. They grew old together on the ranch, watching their children and grandchildren carry on the legacy they had built. Owen kept his promise, proving every day what real love looked like. Not grand gestures or flowery words, but steady presence, unwavering support, and the choice to cherish and respect his partner through all of life's seasons. Natalie bloomed under that love, becoming a pillar of the community. She helped establish the first school in San Andreas and served on various civic committees. But her greatest joy was always her family, the home she and Owen had created together. Years later, when their children asked how they met, Natalie would tell them the truth, but frame it carefully. She spoke of being lost and Owen finding her, of being broken and him helping her heal. She did not dwell on the darkness of Thomas Warren, but she did not hide it either. She wanted her children to understand that love required courage, that healing was possible, and that the right person could help you become the best version of yourself. Your father is the finest man I've ever known, she told them. He showed me what love truly means, not possession or control, but freedom and support. He loved me when I couldn't love myself, and he waited patiently until I was ready to love him back. That's the kind of love you should look for in your own lives. Owen, overhearing, would shake his head. Your mother gives me too much credit. She's the brave one. She survived something terrible and chose to trust again. That takes real strength. We're both right, Natalie would say with a smile. We brought out the best in each other. That's what good partnerships do. The seasons continued to turn, years blending together in a tapestry of shared moments and accumulated memories. There were challenges, of course: droughts and harsh winters, illnesses, and financial setbacks. But Owen and Natalie faced everything together, their love growing deeper and stronger with each trial they weathered. On their 25th anniversary, the whole family gathered at the ranch for a celebration. Thomas was 24 now, managing the ranch with his father and uncle. Emily had married a doctor and lived in San Francisco, while Grace had shocked everyone by becoming a lawyer, one of the first women to practice in California. Daniel and Margaret's children were equally accomplished, and the family had grown to include multiple grandchildren. As Owen looked around at the assembled crowd, his heart swelled with gratitude. All of this had sprung from one moment of choice, one decision to stop and help a stranger dying in the desert. If he had ridden past that day, his life would have been so much emptier. No Natalie, no children, no grandchildren. Just him and Daniel running the ranch in solitary determination. What are you thinking about? Natalie asked, appearing at his elbow with a glass of lemonade. How lucky I am. How one moment can change everything. That works both ways. I was minutes from death when you found me. Everything I have, everything I am, exists because you chose to stop. Because you chose to care about a stranger's life. I couldn't have done anything else, not once I saw you. I know that's who you are. It's why I love you. Only reason, he teased. Well, you're also quite handsome, even with the gray hair. You're not exactly gray-free yourself, darling. True, but I think we wear it well. They stood together, watching their family celebrate. The afternoon sun was warm, and the sound of laughter filled the air. This was what they had built together, Owen thought. Not just a ranch or a family, but a legacy of love and healing, proof that even the darkest moments could lead to the brightest futures. As evening approached and their children and grandchildren began preparing to leave, Natalie and Owen walked out to the small family cemetery on the edge of their property. They had buried Owen's father there, and Daniel's wife Margaret had been laid to rest there 2 years ago after a brief illness. Fresh flowers always adorned the graves, a testament to the family's devotion. Do you ever think about what happens after? Natalie asked, her voice thoughtful. Sometimes. I like to think we'll be together wherever we go next. I'd like that too, though I hope it's a very long time before we have to find out. Agreed. I'm not done with this life yet. Not done with you. Good, because I have plans for us. I want to travel. See some of those places we've always talked about. San Francisco properly, not just for Emily's visits, maybe even back to Boston. Boston? Really? Why not? I'm not the same frightened girl who ran away from there. I'd like to show them who I became. Show them what we built together. Then that's what we'll do. Wherever you want to go, I'm right beside you. They walked back to the house hand in hand, the same way they had walked through life together for 25 years. Their steps were slower now, but no less sure. They had weathered storms and celebrated triumphs, raised children and buried loved ones, worked and laughed and cried together. Through it all, their love had remained constant. That night, alone in their bedroom with the house quiet around them, Owen pulled Natalie close. "Thank you," he said softly. "For what?" "For surviving, for trusting me, for building this life with me, for every moment of the past 25 years. Thank you for saving me, not just from dying, but from giving up. You showed me that life could be beautiful again, that I could be happy again. We did that together." "Yes," she agreed, kissing him softly. "Together. Always together." The years continued to pass, each one bringing new joys and challenges. Owen and Natalie made their trip to San Francisco and Boston, reconnecting with old friends and making new memories. They celebrated the births of great-grandchildren and mourned the passing of old friends. They watched San Andreas grow from a rough frontier town into a proper city with schools and churches and paved streets. Through it all, their love remained the foundation of everything. They still held hands while walking, still stole kisses when they thought no one was looking, still talked late into the night about everything and nothing. The passion of their early years had mellowed into something deeper and more sustaining, a love built on decades of shared experience and unwavering commitment. On a warm summer evening in 1899, 25 years after their silver anniversary, Owen and Natalie sat on their porch watching the sunset. They were both in their 70s now, their hair completely white, their movements slower and more careful. But their minds were sharp and their love as strong as ever. 50 years, Natalie said wonderingly. "Has it really been 50 years since you found me in that canyon?" 51, actually. But 50 since we married. Best 50 years of my life. Mine, too. Owen squeezed her hand gently. "Do you have any regrets?" "Not a single one. Well, maybe that I didn't try Margaret's apple pie recipe when I had the chance. But beyond that, no. This life with you has been everything I could have hoped for and more. I regret not kissing you sooner. I should have kissed you that first night at Doc Harrison's office. I would have screamed and possibly hit you. I was terrified of every man on the planet at that point." "Fair point. I'm glad I waited then." They sat in comfortable silence, the kind that only comes from decades of companionship. The ranch stretched out before them, generations of hard work evident in every fence post and building. Their family had grown beyond anything they had imagined that day in 1873 when Owen found Natalie dying in the desert. "I need to tell you something," Natalie said after a while, her voice serious. Owen turned to look at her, concerned. "What is it?" "I'm not afraid anymore. Of anything. For so long after Thomas, I lived with this low-level fear. Not of you, never of you, but of the world, of the possibility that everything could be taken away again. But somewhere along the way, that fear disappeared. You loved it out of me. You proved day after day, year after year, that I was safe, that I was cherished, that I was home." Owen felt tears prick his eyes. "That's all I ever wanted, to make you feel safe and loved. You succeeded. Beyond measure, I want you to know that, to really understand it. You didn't just save my life that day, Owen. You gave me a life worth living. You proved that love doesn't have to hurt, that it can heal. You showed me what real partnership looks like, what real commitment means. You are the best thing that ever happened to me." "Natalie," he said, his voice choked with emotion. "I love you, Owen Keller. I have loved you for 50 years, and I will love you for whatever time we have left, and beyond that, if there's anything beyond. I love you too, more than words can say. You are my heart, my home, my everything." They kissed, soft and sweet, a kiss that held 50 years of love and devotion. When they pulled apart, both were crying, but they were happy tears. Come on, Owen said, standing and offering his hand. Let's go inside. I'll make us some tea. I'd like that. They walked inside together, their steps synchronized after so many years of walking side by side. The house welcomed them, warm and familiar, filled with photographs and mementos of their life together. This was what love looked like, Owen thought. Not just the grand moments and passionate declarations, but the quiet, everyday choices, the cups of tea and shared silences, the held hands and knowing glances, the unwavering presence through sickness and health, joy and sorrow. When they finally went to bed that night, they lay facing each other in the darkness, hands clasped between them. Good night, my love, Natalie whispered. Good night, darling. See you in the morning. Always in the morning. Always. They drifted off to sleep together, the same way they had done everything for 50 years. Together. Always together. And when morning came, they woke in each other's arms, ready to face another day of their beautiful, hard-won, deeply cherished life. Because that was what they had built together, what Owen had helped Natalie reclaim, and what she had helped him achieve. Not just a marriage or a family or a ranch, but a testament to the transformative power of real love. The kind of love that saves lives and heals wounds. The kind that proves day after day that goodness exists in the world. The kind that turns tragedy into triumph and brokenness into beauty. The kind of love that Owen and Natalie Keller had shared for 50 years and would continue to share for however many more years they were blessed with. Because some loves, the truly great ones, really do last forever. Their story became legend in San Andreas, passed down through generations as an example of true love and redemption. People spoke of the cowboy who saved the dying woman and proved what love really was. Young couples invoked their names when making their own wedding vows. Their descendants carried on their legacy of compassion and commitment. But for Owen and Natalie themselves, it was never about being legendary or remarkable. It was simply about choosing each other day after day through everything life threw at them. It was about keeping promises and building trust, about healing wounds and creating joy, about proving through their very existence that love could conquer even the darkest valleys. In the end, that was enough, more than enough. It was everything